The answer to your question is yes. I am a very biased Boston sports fan. Welcome back, everyone. This is the Ruckus with DJ Hymes. Thank you for joining me today. I got a special guest for you all today. So, a very good friend of mine who actually happened to be one of my basketball coaches previously, Poncho Hodges. Thank you for coming on today, Poncho.
Thank you for having me on, man.
You played overseas for 6 years, all right?
Yeah.
So we're just seeing the effects of Euro basketball really hit the NBA, at least in what I'm seeing, because now like 3-point shooting and shooting from like every angle of the floor is now very prominent. Like the big man is now not necessarily disappearing, but it's being redefined for this generation.
Yeah.
I mean, what trends do you notice overseas that aren't necessarily here yet?
I think that's pretty much the primary thing that you can like kind of see now in the NBA as far as the imprint of overseas basketball. Even back then when I was playing overseas back in the 90s and the late night, early in the late 90s. The big men over there during that time were very skilled. I mean, you had guys that would be about 6'11", 6'10", or whatever, 270-pound bruisers, but they could also step out and shoot the three. And I think what's happened was, I think that with the sprinkling of the European players coming into the NBA, I think the American players kind of started taking notice and started seeing these big men come and be more skilled.
Yeah.
And I think it kind of made the American players start to realize that they need to become more skilled also.
Yeah.
But starting from the grassroots aspect of it, starting from the younger players and then working their way up. Because if you look now, I mean, the kids today, man, are coming up. You got guys that are like 16 years old who might happen to be about 6'9", 6'10", and they already can handle the ball as like guards.
Dude, it's so funny you mentioned that. I was going to ask you if you've heard of this kid. Have you heard of Zion Williamson?
Yeah, I've seen some of his highlights.
Man.
I've seen some of his highlights.
It's unreal. Look at this.
Yeah.
He's 17 years old,
Yeah,
a senior in high
he's
school.
built like a man. The one thing I will say about that kid, though, I've seen it a lot, growing up, seeing a lot of guys who were so much better than the other kids their age and built like that at his age. And a lot of those guys don't succeed, though. I'm not saying he's not going to succeed.
Yeah.
But for his body to be like that this young, I think his body might start betraying him a little bit earlier.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
Yeah, and I think he might, because he's so big already for that age.
Look at him, man.
Yeah, he has to be careful. He may have a weight problem in the next couple of years, but he can't. He has to make sure he doesn't rest because guys catch up, man. I've seen guys who are good like that are so much better than the kids that they're at their age. But guys like him, sometimes they tend to not get any better, and guys catch up. So,
Yeah,
but I don't wish that on him. But I'm just saying, it's something he has to be careful of.
100%. Like this is what the mixture of social media and the hype that's built around things really causes guys like Zion to get like this big massive following, and people get the hype for him, and it's just like, well, if
it's a lot of pressure, man.
Yeah,
I feel bad for this generation as far as. They get so much pressure for such a young age, and it's one of the things. Like my younger son, who's 13, he reminds me a lot of myself. When I was his age, I wasn't all that skilled yet. My game had to kind of like catch up. I was tall, I was lanky. I grew really fast, so I was still kind of moving around awkwardly. And my son is going through the same thing. And I told him, I said, don't worry about all these guys who are getting all this, publicity and you're not getting any. I mean, this is just, I try to explain to him, this is the world we live in now. Those guys are getting that publicity because of Instagram and because of, AAU and this and that. But I told him, I said, some of those guys, take a look around when it's time for you to go to college and you to hopefully, live your dream like your big brother and play in the NBA. Some of those guys, you'll never hear from them again, because they'll reach their peak early. It's okay to be a guy who, blossoms late.
Yeah.
My oldest son went through the same thing. My oldest son, no one even knew about him until going into his senior year, until he came and lived with me his senior year and played AAU ball out here. No one even had any idea who he was because he was living in Montana and he wasn't playing on the big AAU circuit. So he wasn't even heavily recruited. But that one summer he came and lived with me, he was able to show his talents and show how good he was.
This is Josh, right?
Yeah, my son Josh. And the next thing you know, Georgetown and USC and all these big time schools came calling. And it's not always about the guys that get the hype. It's about the guys who finish last and the guys who work hard.
For those who don't know, his son is Josh Eustace, who played for the Oklahoma City, still plays for the Oklahoma City Thunder, and was drafted, I think it was 24th, right?
29th.
29th.
Yeah, 2014 draft.
2014.
29th pick. Yeah.
Who was 2014's draft class?
2014 draft class was my son, Kyle Anderson from UCLA. Bojan Bogdanovic.
Oh man, he is so good.
Yeah, let's see. Who else? A couple of guys that are not in the league anymore. Like actually guys who were ranked ahead of my son, who my son ended up getting drafted over, like guys like Cle Anthony Early.
Yeah. Man, I haven't thought of that guy in forever. The guy that played for the Knicks, right? Yeah, number 17.
Glenn Robinson III was in that draft also.
Yeah,
so
he was so good.
It was a pretty good draft. There was a lot of talent in that draft.
There are a lot of big names too. They're like recognizable names.
Yeah. Andrew Wiggins also.
That's what it was. That was the year Smart, Wiggins, Parker, all those guys came out.
Yeah.
I mean, I made a prediction that like for this coming season that Jabari Parker is going to be the most improved player.
The thing about him is it's like he's one of those guys that's very deceptive. You look at his body, and obviously he's worked on his body because he was a lot more
bigger,
flabby.
Yeah,
but he's worked on his body and he got a lot more cut. But his athletic ability is off the charts, man. He is super, super athletic, and if you look at some of his dunks, man, he has some highlight dunks.
Yeah, he was in the rotation or something for like the dunks of the year.
He was playing really, really well.
He had this year alone, he upped his points. He went from 14.1 to 20 points a game.
Yeah.
And dropped his shooting percentage only by 0.3%.
Yeah, he's incredible, man, and that's why I felt so bad when he tore his ACL, man.
Yeah.
But from I watched some of his videos. I follow him on Instagram, and he looks like the rehab process is going well, and I hope he comes back. And because they're exciting, man, with him and with the Greek Freak. I mean, that's those two guys.
He's like the pinnacle of what the crossing of Euro style basketball and American basketball has come to. I feel like the tall athletic guy. We have all the tall athletic players, and then mixing in the European skill set has made this guy like the 7 foot next big name.
I can't even think of a word for that guy, man. He's scary.
He is.
I would hate to have to guard that guy, man, because he's 6'11". He's like KD, but even longer. I mean, and we know KD is super long, but this guy, I don't think he's as fluid as KD.
I agree.
He's not as fluid with his ball handling because KD has excellent ball handling skills, but I think that Giannis attacks the basket a little harder.
I agree.
When he goes to the basket, I think Giannis really goes in with the intent of taking the rim down.
I feel like he can go in and just fake you out and then take a mid-range jump shot.
Yeah.
Or there's so many skills that he has, it almost makes you think, all right, is he actually going to go that aggressive to the basket? But every time the Greek Freak goes down the lane, it's like, oh, man, you got to get out of the way. Just get out of the way.
He's not even scratched the surface of how good he's going to be.
He was the most improved player last year,
23, I think, or something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
Like 23 years old. I mean, we're talking about a guy who's just now scratching the surface.
He's 22 years old. Man.
He hasn't. So put it this way. As a man, you don't even come into your prime as far as strength and everything until you're like 27. Like right around 27 is when you reach your kind of like your peak of what you will be. So.
And this guy is just killing. Look at the stats, too. He's gone up.
He's a future MVP of the league. He's a future MVP.
All right, let me ask you this then. If he's a future MVP,
not saying this year.
No, I agree.
But in the future,
I agree. I feel like he's there. Are you still on that hype train about Anthony Davis being an MVP at some point?
Not in New Orleans.
Nope.
Not in New Orleans. Nope. It's going to take him to be on another team that's fighting in the playoffs, because he can. Those numbers that he averaged, they kind of go out the window in New Orleans. They kind of don't mean anything.
Yeah, exactly.
They don't mean anything. But talent-wise, I mean, that guy, he's another one that's, man, scary talented.
See, they ranked him like the second best player in the NBA like a year or two ago, right, going into the season. And I always said, there's overhype on him. I always felt that way. I love his skill set.
Davis?
Yeah. I love his skill set, and I love who he is as a person and player. He's got a lot of different things that he can do, and on the defensive end, it's like his defense is just as good.
You got to remember, this guy can guard 1 through 5.
Yeah, and he played every position. That guy grew senior year 7 inches or something.
Yeah.
And I like him. I just thought, he's an MVP if we're back like in the Kevin Garnett prime era, like early 2000s, because I feel the same way about Blake Griffin, kind of the same way. Like, they'd be perfect at that point in time in the NBA, but right now we're sort of getting into this new movement where smaller, more athletic guards, or just like
have a better chance of making or getting the MVP.
Yeah, because the attention is more on them.
Right.
The big man used to have the entire attention, like when Shaq was. Shaq, I feel like, was the peak of big men in the NBA as of late. Like there's the wave going up and up and up, and then we had Kareem, we had Bill Russell, we had all the big guys, and then we had Shaq.
Right.
Name one guy after Shaq that's a big man that's made any type of accolade is maybe even similar to that.
It's a good point. It's a good point. I mean, the game definitely is starting to move, more towards the small forwards and the guys who are more athletic. But I think, like I said, Anthony Davis could potentially be an MVP. He just needs to be on a different team. Blake Griffin, no. Blake Griffin is talented, but
he peaked.
He's already peaked. I think his body. I think Blake's body may start to betray him just based upon his history as far as injuries is concerned.
Yep.
But he's very good player. But I just question Blake's and this year's the proof is in the pudding this year.
Yeah.
Because now you don't have an excuse, to blame Chris Paul. You're the guy. You and DeAndre, you're the guy for the scoring. They have DeAndre, but DeAndre is only going to give you a certain amount of points.
For those of you who don't see, these are my top 5 predictions that I wrote a week ago.
Yeah.
The Clippers begin regretting the Blake Griffin deal quick.
I don't know if they're going to regret it because you got to remember, we're talking about a guy whose box office also, though, just because of the way he plays, highlight reel is going to attract the fans. But as far as winning is concerned, and then also with it just being the Clipper organization in general, I just question. I know they got that new player, the guy from was it Teodosic, I believe his name is, a point guard. They just got a new point guard. He's from Europe. He's like
the guy that was averaging like 16 and 8 in the EuroLeague.
Passer, has a great feel for the basketball for the game, but he's not he hasn't been playing in the NBA, so it's a different game. And the thing I question about the Clippers is now Chris Paul. DeAndre, how does DeAndre score now?
Exactly. Like, how does Blake score? These guys have never played.
Blake. One thing I will say, if you remember, when CP went out and Blake was averaging, he was scoring a lot. I remember he had a couple of games of like 40, 30 something here.
Yeah,
he was
right.
scoring a lot of points. So Blake, one thing about it, Blake can score, but I always feel like you can't depend on Blake when the crunch time comes.
I agree.
I feel like he disappears.
Yeah, I agree.
But the thing is now, like I said, with no Chris Paul, DeAndre is going to have a problem scoring. And I want to see DeAndre do well, man. Because I know DeAndre. I've been around him a couple of times. He's a great kid. And if he's skilled enough to post up and make moves. But for some reason, he just doesn't do it. I don't know why, but he's definitely skilled enough. If he takes his game to that level, and in addition to what he's doing already with catching the lobs and running the floor and dunking, but if he starts actually posting up, catching the ball, facing up, inside pivot, jab steps, one dribble hooks, whew, man, he could be an MVP candidate. That big man that let me tell you something.
DeAndre Jordan.
DeAndre Jordan's first team All NBA. First team All NBA. Okay.
All right.
He's already averaging a nice amount. He averaged what last year? Maybe like 17 points a game, and we're talking about just off of dunks. So let's see. Look at his stats.
Last year, 12.7 points a game. Let's actually load the whole thing.
Okay.
He was averaging. Let's see. He's averaging points per game. 12.7 points per game. 1.7 blocks per game.
Almost 14 rebounds a game. So.
Oh, crap, yeah.
Yeah, so we're talking about a guy who did all that 12.7 points a game just off of lobs and running the floor. So that's what I'm saying. So imagine if he learns to play in the post. We're talking about an extra 10 points a game. So we're talking about a guy that would be averaging about 23 points a game and 14 rebounds a game. So, if he took his game to that next level like that, I'm not saying he would be an MVP.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that
he'd be in conversation.
He'd be in conversation.
Yeah, okay.
He'd be in the conversation.
I see what you're talking about.
Because people forget. He made first team All NBA. You made first team All NBA, man. You're no joke. I mean, that's.
I like him, and I like his game.
Yeah.
I don't think Doc has utilized him right
No, Doc has stymied his progress. Doc.
Thank you.
No, Doc.
Thank you.
But Doc says it though. Doc says he's had the conversation with DeAndre. This is what you're gonna do. You're gonna run the floor. You're gonna block shots. You're gonna dunk the ball. And DeAndre seems like he's fine with it.
I feel like he's using him the same way he used Kendrick Perkins, but Kendrick Perkins' skill set was also not even a fourth of what DeAndre's is. No offense, Kendrick.
Yeah, Kendrick was just a bruiser and just used his body and used his size. But I get what you're saying though. But skill wise though, DeAndre is head and shoulders above. I mean, this kid, I'm telling you, if you see this kid move in person, I mean, he is a freak athlete at 6'11", man.
I love watching his highlights too.
He can shoot both hands.
Yeah.
If you ever notice some of his highlights, he dunks the ball and shoots with both hands. Like
he makes it seem like he's very ambidextrous with it.
Very. So that's dangerous. A guy like that is dangerous.
I like DeAndre Jordan. I've always been high on him. I thought the Celtics should try and trade for him or Tyson Chandler this summer, and I was like,
Boston.
Danny, hello. There's
That would be
Tyson.
interesting.
I mean,
he's got the picks to do it. That's for sure.
Come on,
he's waiting for LeBron to get old. That's what he's doing.
What are you gonna do? You're gonna wait like another 3-4 years? Come on, man.
It seems like he keeps holding on to those number one picks.
I gotta say though, if there's one thing I'm proud of, at first I was skeptical about trading that pick, the first pick that we could have used on Fultz.
Right.
And then you think about the picks that they got for it. They got basically another guaranteed 1 through 5 pick.
Again.
And it's like every year we're gonna end up having some top pick.
Great bargaining chips, man.
That actually leads me into something.
Because if you think about it, even in the middle of next season, the season coming up, when all the trades are going on, you got those. Hey, those are great picks. I mean, if Boston finds himself still needing something, me personally, I think that
they still need something.
They got to get rid of Isaiah Thomas. I mean, as much as I love him, but he's just too small. Isaiah is built for the regular season.
You think so?
Yeah, he's built for the regular season, but he's not built for playoff basketball, because if playoff basketball slows down, and he's just you can't hide him on the court, as we saw against Cleveland. I mean, he's getting switched off having to guard LeBron. I mean, come on, man, man. You feel bad for that guy, man.
See, I feel the same way about Isaiah Thomas as I do Allen Iverson. Great players. Offensive game is honestly like off the charts, and they can kind of do whatever they want.
Right.
Offensively.
Right.
Defensively, it's suspect at best. And even more so, you're like, well, who's he gonna guard? You honestly have to have an excellent 2-guard like Avery Bradley was to cover up the stuff that Isaiah was doing.
And he's gone, so Avery is gone.
That made me cry.
I mean, that's but Daddy seems like he knows what he's doing, so we'll see. I mean,
All right. Well, that actually leads me to a certain question for you. So, we're talking about how, the Celtics have the current situation where they do, and ESPN decided to do their rankings, the regular season projections that they give. So, they said this. Projected win totals. Look at the Eastern Conference, who's at number 1, right?
Wow, Boston, okay.
But look at the number.
Wow. Okay.
They're projecting the Boston Celtics, who just added Gordon Hayward to win 49 games after getting a 53-win season against the Eastern Conference, which got worse. Literally lost Paul George. You lost Jimmy Butler and one more player. Who did they lose? Paul Millsap from Atlanta.
Millsap, yeah.
He went to Denver, and they're projecting them to win only 50 games. They added Marcus Morris from the Avery Bradley trade.
That's a good pickup.
I love him. They added Aaron Baines, who's just a big body.
Australian guy.
Yep. They added Gordon Hayward, of course, the biggest one, and Jason Tatum, who I'm very high on.
Yeah, he's got good footwork, man. I like that kid. He has good footwork, good skill set. I'm just waiting to see how he's going to look against NBA players, but I like him though.
So they have them winning 49 games. Do you agree with the 49 game prediction
for Boston?
Yep.
That's a lot. When you think about it, it's a lot of games, man. I mean, because there's 82 games in the season. I mean, 50 wins is not bad. I mean, that's
50 wins isn't bad, but they just came off a season where they won 53 games without basically a second name.
I think they'll do better because, like you said, I mean, now with Atlanta has nothing pretty much. Washington's going to be strong. Washington's still going to be strong.
They didn't get better, though.
No, they didn't get better, but you got a guy, experience-wise, and you got a guy like Otto Porter who just signed that big contract. When guys sign big contracts, it can work two ways. They can either kind of go into a shell, or all of a sudden they can raise their game.
Yeah.
And I think if Otto raises his game, and with the other players that they have, they're going to be pretty good. I think they'll get more than 50 wins because the East is a lot weaker this year. I would say Boston probably will get. I would say 60. I'll give them 60 wins.
60 wins? All right. So my exact amount I said was anywhere between 56 and 60.
Yeah.
Given, 1, injuries, and 2, they're going to have to start Jaylen Brown. That's it.
That kid is talented.
I know. I'm behind it.
He can play.
I want him to start.
He played well in Summer League.
He played well in Summer League. He played well in the Africa game.
Yeah.
He played
he played in African games?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that.
And he had a dunk highlight there.
Really?
Yeah.
So one of his parents must be from African background, I guess. Huh. Yeah, he's talented, though. They need to give that guy some time. He played well in the Summer League. Played really well. That's the kid that went to Cal, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
3rd pick in last year.
Good,
2 years ago.
Yeah, good skill set.
I'm really high on him. I think he'll be a good starting 2 guard and really will cover. It will kind of do what Avery Bradley did, but will be more hands-on with the ball and aggressive.
But can he defend, though?
That's what I love about him.
He can defend?
He's a better defender to me than he is an offensive player.
Really? Okay. Damn, I didn't know that. I've never really watched him play before, but if he can defend, I mean, I've seen offensively he looks like he's pretty good.
He was playing he was defending LeBron during the playoffs.
Yeah, I remember that.
And that's when I really got to see, like, all right, if you're covering LeBron in most of these possessions, and nobody can really truly cover him,
right,
but, like, you can wear him down.
Yeah.
And he was getting the ball out of his hands.
Right.
So that to me is a sign that you're doing something right.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't agree with that. I think that a 49 win season, like, come on.
I would say 60.
60 wins for me is definitely something that I'm comfortable with that 100%. 100%.
Yeah.
All right. So on to another interesting topic. This is something that everyone's been discussing, and it's been very prevalent in both the regular news, in sports news, and pretty much everywhere. With Colin Kaepernick, the saga that continues with him. Now, it seems like every week I talk about some new update or an opinion that I have about Kaepernick's situation and whatnot. Mm-hmm. Now, where do you stand with Kaepernick? Do you think he's being blackballed by the NFL?
Yeah, I mean, it's there's no secret, man. I mean, this guy, he took something that he believed in. He made a stance. He took a stance on something that he believes in. Something that we should all be taking a stance on. I mean, he exercised his freedom of speech. He didn't kill anybody. He didn't go out and, do anything criminal or anything like that. He just, said that. And the crazy part is, remember, he started out first just sitting.
Yeah.
And he was getting on that flag. So I remember he had a meeting with a lot of the veterans, and they were telling him that they were offended. And he explained to them, like, this is nothing against the military. This is not against our flag per se.
Yeah.
It's against, what the flag is supposed to stand for. It's not being applied to everyone. Everyone is not being included, and this is how I feel. And he started kneeling rather than sitting. And a lot of the veterans, they did stand behind him and respect the fact that he started kneeling, but most of the status quo still found, that they had a problem with what he was doing. And the whole thing that I hate is everybody's talking about what he was doing, but not talking about the message.
Exactly.
Why he did it.
You know, I had the same discussion with a family member of mine actually recently, and they voiced their opinion about it, stating, they were happy that he's out of the NFL because he took a stand against the flag, which stands for liberty and justice for all. And I'm like...
But what did you just say? Stands for what?
Exactly. And that's when I said, he's using
liberty his justice for all.
I made a point to say he's using his constitutional right to do that. And then 2, It's the message. He's not standing against the flag. What he's standing for is the message that it should represent and that it's not.
Exactly.
And
it's something that we should all be doing.
People don't understand that distinction, though.
Yeah, they don't. And I just hope that Colin is going to be given a chance to play. It doesn't look like it, but...
I think with everything going on in the NFL, you have guys that get injured, and unfortunately, they decided to go with Jay Cutler for Miami, which, just in all honesty, is Jay Cutler.
Cutler.
He looks
$10 million
like
a year.
$10 million a year, and this is
extra
a
$3 million incentives.
And it's like, this man looks like his own face puts him to sleep, and you're going to offer him that much money, one and two. He looks so disinterested.
Guy who hasn't won anything.
No, he's a nobody.
Hasn't won anything.
If there's anyone that I love listening to whose opinion is so firm on him, is Stephen A. Smith. Right. I love hearing it because Stephen A. Smith just colossally buries
as he should,
buries
because
him.
It's the truth. I mean, he's not a leader. He hasn't won anything, but this team decided to give him $10 million for the year, but they're complaining about Colin Kaepernick wanted too much money, and he hasn't specified to teams that he really wants to play.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whether you want to play or not, or whether you state it socially or not.
So you're saying that, though, but you go out and try to get Tim Tebow, who's already playing baseball, who hasn't played in the NFL since 2014.
Yeah,
something like that.
And even when he was in the NFL, it's not like he was anything significant. No. He was a pimple on the butt of society.
Yeah, it's just ridiculous, man. But what can you do?
I mean, I think that he will get a job by the midpoint of the season. I feel like you can only have so many players go down with an injury, and even if you have,
it has to be the right team, though. That's the thing about it. The right team has to make a move as far as to bring him in. It has to be. I
would think a New York team would do that, considering the Jets. You really going to trust Ryan Fitzpatrick after all of that?
The Jets would not be a bad spot.
With all the spotlight on him, he'd have the opportunity to kind of just take a moment, and if people really want him to do,
New York is a very liberal state. So.
Very liberal, and all the lights will be on him. And if he even played it quiet, even if he didn't say anything, just kind of played it quiet in New York, that would speak volume to what he's doing, because he's just focusing on football. And if he decided to speak, it's a state where it would be accepted.
Yeah.
I'd like to thank my guest for coming on the show today, Poncho Hodges. Poncho, thank you very much for coming on. Hope to see you again, man. Given the violence in Charlottesville, it's time we as Americans start taking a deep look in the mirror. We remain divided, somehow still divided, misconstruing what Kaepernick's protest was, with focusing on the disrespect towards the United States at large and the veterans and the military, with what it really represents, which is to shed light on the injustices, inequalities, and the violence that people of color and minorities face in this nation each day. He utilized the time when people would be paying attention to their televisions most, during the national anthem of a football game, which is tuned in by so many Americans across this nation. And you would think as Americans we'd understand the concept of his protest, being that he is standing for the rights of others, not just himself, but many people in this nation. Well, maybe it's time we need to get a harsh dose of social justice in reality. Here it is, people. We're facing a world where Charlottesville just had this attack occur. And it is clearly shown that white supremacy is very prevalent in today's nation, Nazism is very prevalent as well, and discrimination is still very heavy in today's society. We need to understand that and take a deep breath and realize the actuality of the world we live in. Yes, we have lived in many different cultural bubbles that have been popped with the use of technology and social media, showing that different areas face different injustices that others may not. We are very lucky in that in certain areas that we live, like for myself, I live in Los Angeles, where we see a very diverse community. And the likelihood of seeing discrimination, I'm not saying is going to be lower, but I feel as though we have a much more understanding populace here than most places, if you catch my drift. But this has shown that white supremacy, Nazism, and discrimination are very around and prevalent in today's society, and we need to take that to heart. Maybe it's time we start taking that old adage of love thy neighbor a little bit more seriously. I know I will. Well, thank you for tuning in today, and if you'd like to see more interviews, sports updates, breaking news, my opinions on athletes and what's going on in today's sports world, come back, tune in, and please subscribe.